All right, we are live following the Jim Feist handicapping show from Las Vegas. Greg DePalma here for another Proline Picks Wednesday as we take a look at the key games and, matter of fact, a lot of games going on in the NFL and college football. So far off to a good start. This season, we're entering month number 2, so we'll see if month number 2 is as kind as month number 1 has been to us, especially in college. The NFL, we started to get a little bit more traction over the last couple of weeks, but for the most part, the NFL has still been really tough. But college, we've been very successful so far, so we'll keep our fingers crossed for another successful month coming up. Don't forget, if you have any questions or comments regarding any games at all, just let me know. And keep in mind that I will be on producing the show tomorrow at 1 o'clock Eastern, the Playbook ATS podcast with Mark Lawrence. He's going to be along, as always, accompanied by Andy Iskoe and Jim Feist. So it's Andy, Mark, Jim, and I. And that is at 1 o'clock Eastern tomorrow on the Playbook ATS podcast. Mark will allot a handful of games in both the NFL and college football for us to chew on. And we'll talk about a variety of other topics. And then Mark and Jim will be with myself on Friday at 2:30 Eastern. And I'll take whatever games are left from the Playbook show. So trust me, we won't take the same games. So we'll have 5 games, say, in the NFL and college on Thursday. And then I'll pick 5 games in the NFL and college on Friday, 4 or 5 for us to talk about on Friday's show. And that'll, again, just Mark, Jim, and I, the 3 amigos here at Proline TV. And for the other sports, we're going to have our horse racing show returns. And again, this is the second week that we are back live and available for free on the channel with John Hardoon. And that is coming up tomorrow night. And I believe we are going to air that show a little bit later tomorrow. So I think we're going to be on the air like around 8 o'clock tomorrow night. So keep that in mind. But we're going to have 2 to 3 races tomorrow, a big weekend coming up, 2 big weekends back to back. A lot of Breeders' Cup win or in races coming up. So we're going to be handicapping those races starting tomorrow night at around 8 o'clock Eastern. And of course, that's in the evening. And then for NASCAR fans, we already did our show along with our F1 coverage earlier this week. And we are going to continue some of that coverage on Saturday afternoon for our qualifying and practice report. Should be around 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon on Saturday. Okay, let's see. David, let's see. Yeah, actually, David, this normally is supposed to be right after the show that Jim does or at 4 o'clock Eastern. And so that's where we are. We're right in between, right after 4 o'clock. It just depends on the timing. And so here we are. I'd like to be on right after, but sometimes I just can't make it because I am producing the show from the studio, even though Tommy's handling everything, of course, on site. So that's basically the deal there. And just glad you're paying attention. That's the important thing. Liberty, nice college picks last week. Can't believe Indiana didn't cover Iowa. Liberty, you don't have to remind me. I don't know. Do you guys ever do like these big parlays where you just say, I'm going to do like a $5 or $10 parlay and I'm going to put a bunch of teams on there. It's sort of like a lottery ticket. And if you hit it, then it's a big number. Well, I put about $10 on an 8-team parlay last week, and it had started early in the week. So I think I did like a game on Monday. And so it was early when Indiana was still only a 7.5-point favorite. And I forget who was playing the previous Monday night. So I had that game, and then I had Indiana 7.5. So I cut it to 7. And then I went with 6 additional games. And the good thing about doing it early in the week is that something like that is, I think you have a much better chance to hit a parlay than to say put all 8 games on a Saturday. I think that's really hard. But when you spread it out for the week, to me, that's like hitting 4 parlays. Couple here, couple there, couple there, couple. I think that's easier than hitting 8 an 18 parlay. So that's the reason I like to do those parlays like that. So the last team on the parlay, BYU money line. And again, I was able to do the money line, even though they were a 7-point favorite or 6-point favorite. It's like minus 245. And keep that in mind too. If you're ever doing a big parlay and you've got the favorite, no matter how big the favorite is, unless he's, college football 15-point favorite, but if he's minus 300 or lower, take the money line, because then it makes life so much easier for you to hedge the bet at the end, because now you're getting over 2-to-1 money line on the hedge. And so you're in a great position to hedge. So anyways, that's what I did. And I had hit the first 4 games. I only had the Indiana game to finish, which was a 3:00 game, I believe. And then I had Iowa State and not Iowa State. Iowa State and BYU. So those are and I had another game at 7:00. If I'm not, that's right. No, I did a 4:00 game. I had Mississippi State getting 8. I believe that was one of them. And I think Hawaii money line. I think that might have been another one, because they were at 4:00. So, and I had Iowa State 6, which now thinking about it, that was stupid, because I should have put a money line on Iowa State as well. Because all you have to do is add a couple extra bucks, because the outcome was $1,000 for me for a $10 18 parlay, because I had a couple of money line plays in there, Hawaii, and I forget who else. So anyway, you know what happened. And the fucked up thing was that game was on Peacock. And I had every game on that parlay I was able to watch it. The only game all Saturday for college football I could not watch was that game, because it was on Peacock. And I refused to pay Peacock to watch one game every 3 weeks or something like that. So I don't do it. It doesn't really affect me either way. And I just have to deal with it. So I'm watching the scoreboard on ESPN's site about what's going on. And I'm seeing take a knee, take a knee, take a knee. And I'm at this position where it's like, okay, well, obviously I've got this. And that's when I started thinking about, oh man, I wish I had the money line on Iowa State. I could have hedged, because I could have hedged even the Arizona game if I had that. And this way, if I got screwed there and I had a money line to hedge with, I could have actually still made money on my $10 parlay. I could have made $50 or something. So anyway, when I saw the result, I just couldn't believe it, because it didn't make any sense to me. I've never seen a safety for 40 yards out. Never in my entire life of what have you? Has anybody out there ever seen a safety from 40 yards out? So, matter of fact, even after the game, Mendoza seemed like, he apologized, and he was actually, you could tell he really didn't feel it was necessary to run in the end zone himself. He just felt it was necessary to just run the clock out. And at 3 seconds, how many times, matter of fact, this happened in a game this weekend. I don't remember what game it was. You could check it. You might even remember from a game if you watched it, where the same result happened. And it could have been either the end of the half, or the end of the game. And there were like 2 seconds left in the half. And the quarterback just went back, took 2 steps, chucked the ball out of bounds. The game or the half was over. That's all Mendoza had to do. That's it. You didn't have to run. You just had to take 2 steps, wait, chuck the ball out of bounds, game over. But Cignetti was so anal about it that he actually thought, and I guess he didn't, because the game was on Sunday, the Colt game, and he didn't get an opportunity to watch that first, or maybe he would have changed his mind. Just imagine how idiotic it would have been if Mendoza would have been running down the field and the ball just slipped out of his hands, the way it did for Mitchell against the Rams, because it happens. That had a more likely a chance to happen. I'm sorry, but statistically speaking, it was the wrong decision 10 out of 10 times. Because the longer you go with the play, the longer something can happen, instead of just going, chuck it out of bounds. So Cignetti can come up with all the excuses he wants. He was wrong. And I guarantee you he's never going to do it again. Watch the next time that comes up. He's not doing it again, because he's going to realize, he's not going to admit it to everybody, but it was the wrong decision. Anyway, yeah, that cost me $500, because I would have pushed, and then I would have hedged my bet on BYU on the money line and gone from there, which actually worked out in a way because it took the money line and it didn't cover. So again, the money line wound up being the smart play. So anyway, to answer your question there, Liberty, in a very long way, yes, I saw the game. I know what happened. And it was a really good week anyway. It would have been a much better week. It would have been a fabulous week if that crazy finish didn't happen. And I also lost 1,000 on the NASCAR race. I had Denny Hamlin. And because I had a good amount of money in the account from having a really good couple of weeks, I'm able to throw a little bit more than normal on the driver. And I was really confident about Denny Hamlin. And he went out there and he dominated the race. And then with like 14 laps to go, a caution comes out. If the caution doesn't come out, he wins the race, I make 1,000. Caution comes out. It's a green, white checkered. And on the last lap, he takes the lead. And then around the last corner, because he wound up trying to block another driver who had the lead on him, he let another driver come on the inside, Chase Elliott, steal the victory, and win the race. And I lost $1,000 within 5 seconds in that situation. So, and that was with everything else that had gone on in a positive way for me. So it was one of those things where I could have had like the best week of my life handicapping, and yet I still had a good week and had two really big bad things happen to me in the same week. But you know, how many times has that happened though, when you had a bad week and those two things happen and you end up with nothing? Well, that's happened a lot to me. I'm sure it's happened a lot to you as well. So I have to look at it as still as, okay, I'm all right. But you know what I'm not going to feel good about is if I have a bad week this week and I lose a good amount of my funds that I have in the account. And I would say, and then of course my reaction will be, well, you see, if I had that money from last week, I'd have a lot more to lose. But let's hope that's not the case. Let's hope we can keep staying on a roll. And before we get into everything, I'm going to pop up the rankings. Actually, you know what? What do you want to? Let's start with the NFL. Okay. So let me pop up the NFL because that's tomorrow. That's Thursday. Let me get this out of here. Okay. And the line in the NFL. What'd you have, David? They had first down. The Packers. What was part of that game was that? Yeah, a lot of things I don't recall. I was actually I didn't watch the game live. I did record it and watch the end of the game, and I saw how crazy that game was. Especially considering it had to end in a tie. I mean, that's just what an awful way to lose or to tie a 40-40 game. Okay, so let's get right into it. And here we go. All right. So this is really surprising to me because it started at 5, and I wanted to take the Rams at 5, and I felt pretty good about that. There are some really good trends that go with the Rams. If you take a look at it, they've covered 7 of the last 8 on Thursday Night Football over the last 6 years. They've also been very good in the division lately. They have won 9 out of 12 with their ATS being 8-2-2 in those 12 in the division the last 2 years. They have beaten the Niners 3 straight up and against the spread, keeping in mind that San Francisco had really owned the Rams before this run here. San Francisco had beaten the Rams 3 straight times and 9 straight in the regular season. Now, there was a loss in there, but that was the playoffs. So if you just take the playoffs out of the equation, it was a 9 straight regular season win streak by San Francisco and until these last 3 wins by the Rams. So the Rams still have 6 more to go to pay back. So I think you can look at it that way if you like. They've also won and covered both games at home this year. And now we know all of the injuries going on with San Francisco. And I'm just guessing because it's a short week that it's not looking good for Purdy. That's the reason the line is shot up all the way to 7. I got to tell you what, I'd rather, I don't know, I'd rather just give the 5 and play Purdy than the 7. But whatever, because Pearsall's still banged up. We know so many injuries this team has. Bosa and Kittle, of course, those are big players. But how about this? Kyle Shanahan is 1-11 against the spread all time when he takes on an opponent off of an ATS win. Now, you would think there would be more than just 12 instances, but that's it. That's all it is. And he's 0-1 in that spot this year. So that's something else. I mean, the only thing that tells me is when a team, when the Niners are playing a team coming in off of some sort of decent week, they don't cover. So that's a pretty big number. But look, I just think that the Rams are the better team. I thought that since the beginning of the season. They had a nice come from behind win against the Colts. What had to do with Donnie Mitchell fumbling the ball at that point in time. But this number is just big. I don't know. I'm still taking the Rams, but it's a big number. This is another game over in Europe for Minnesota. This is a game in London now. And Cleveland is going to be moving on to Dylan Gabriel. I think it's a smart move because the offense has gotten stagnant under Flacco. It looks nothing like the offense did when he was here a couple of years ago, a year and a half ago. So it was like, hey, let's see if we can kind of relive some of that magic. No, the magic has not been relived. And so Cleveland's offense is not going anywhere. Some of that has to do with the offensive line. If you look at it, Conklin is questionable for the game. So that is something that would definitely be important. If you take a look at the fact that DeJuan Jones is out for the year, I don't know if he's coming back or not, but the fact is no Jones, Conklin may not be there. That's your bookend tackles to start the season. Posick has been banged up, but I'm assuming he's playing. Tillman's now out. And then you look at Minnesota and you don't feel sorry for Cleveland because Minnesota's offensive line is a mash unit. And I'm actually surprised that this line has gone up from 3 to 4.5 because of that offensive line. If you look at the Minnesota offensive line, they're starting left tackle O'Neal. It looks like he's not playing. Their starting center, Ryan Kelly, should be retiring. And I haven't heard anything, but when you have this many concussions, you need to retire. If anything, he can't play this week. So that means new center, one new tackle. Even though School, the replacement tackle, is not bad. I would definitely not look at the Vikings any differently just because School's playing tackle over O'Neal. I'm okay with that. But they also are out of their first-round draft pick, Donovan Jackson, who won't be back until at least week 7. So that is a lot to lose. Aaron Jones is still not there. One of your top pass rushers is still not there, and Van Ginkel. So, we saw what happened last week. So I think the one edge they have, though, is the timing. They're already in Europe. Cleveland had to, go from Detroit, short week, that kind of thing, overseas. So there is an advantage there for Minnesota, no question. But the Vikings lead the league in giving up sacks, 18 of them. And now comes maybe the best defense in the NFL so far this season, the Cleveland Browns and Myles Garrett. That's why at 4.5, which I all I'm going to guess here is it's because they're going to Dylan Gabriel. And if that's the case, I think that's the wrong way to go because I think Gabriel is going to end up in look. You would say, well, he could throw interceptions and that could really be the difference, but that's not Dylan Gabriel's game. I'd be surprised if Dylan Gabriel went there and just started chucking interceptions in the game. I just don't think that that's what you're going to see. You could see that with Sanders, but not with Dylan Gabriel. So I'd probably take Cleveland, to tell you the truth, at 4.5. Check this out. This is a desperate game for Minnesota. When they come back home after this bye, all right, they are going to be facing Philadelphia, at the Chargers, at the Lions, and hosting the Ravens, who probably have Lamar Jackson back by then. Nice schedule. Okay, next up. Colts and Vegas. And in this one, no Colton Miller, their best offensive lineman. He's on IR for the Raiders. Bad news. For Indianapolis, they're 6-2 against the spread. Their last 8 is a home favorite. 1-0 in that spot this year. They have a few injuries themselves. Who doesn't? especially in the secondary. Kenny Moore is a good player, and Pierce may be back. But overall, look, this is one of those games that I'm actually a little bit, I don't know, I wouldn't say a trap game because it's not. Maybe it looks a little too easy the way the Colts have played so far this year, and the Raiders haven't looked all that great. But let's look. The Raiders outplayed Chicago last week. They should have won the game. So I think that's the way you have to look at it in my mind. They're 2-2, but still, they're still not a 500 team. We know that. That's just the way the schedule worked out for them, beating the Patriots and the Bears, if they would have beaten the Bears. So I don't look at the Raiders as being some, really pathetic team. So yeah, I don't know. This one kind of, look, I like the Colts. I'm not going to go take the Raiders, but I don't know. It's just one of those games where I might need a few more days. All right. Eagles and Denver. And in this one, this is one where, as the Eagles have bumped up now to a 3.5-point favorite, where I would like Denver a lot more if it wasn't for the fact that they're coming off a Monday night short week and they're going west to east. So that concerns me. They're also 0-2 on the road, and they're taking on the defending world champs who haven't lost yet. But the Eagles are just like last year with the Chiefs. The Eagles are like jonesing for other teams to beat them, but other teams can't do it. And we're getting into one of those situations again this season because we're seeing it with the Chiefs again, where every year we think that, all right, this is the year we're going to get some better teams. This is the year the Bengals with Burrow are going to be better. You're going to take a look at some other teams. They're going to start getting better. In other words, they're going to start to be able to compete with the better teams. And every year we get disappointed. It doesn't happen. And by the end of the season, it's the same old teams. It'll be the Chiefs and Bills and the Eagles and, I don't know, maybe Detroit if they can stay healthy. So it's just, hey, Detroit would be nice. But again, if they can stay healthy. So in this one, I'm still leaning towards the Broncos, though, because the Eagles' offensive line, and I said this to Jim last week on one of the shows, because he was talking about how great the Eagles' offensive line is, and that's something that can happen. It's what you have a respect factor. It's a legacy of, if you could do this for 2 or 3 years or longer of being a really good unit, then, sort of like when you win a Pro Bowl, and you win it one year and you probably shouldn't have won it that year, but your reputation was so good for the previous 3 or 4 that you were able to win that extra year. But then the next year, everybody catches up. That's what's going on with the Eagles offensive line. This is not a good offensive line this year. Lane Johnson has left the last 2 games with an injury. Throw in the fact that Dickerson, who is a 3-time Pro Bowler, got injured early in the season. He has not been 100%. Remember, they lost Becton, replaced him with Steen, not a good replacement compared to Becton. And they lost a Hall of Fame center, Kelsey, and that is a big drop down. So just take a look at the offense. Let's take a look at the offense for the Eagles. The offense, and I know we can point the finger at the OC, and I've done a lot of that. Trust me. But once again, what did we say last week with the Eagles offense? And I'll talk about this and bring this up if this is a game that we're going to talk about, which I'm sure it will be, either tomorrow or Friday. I said this last week. Watch out against Tampa Bay to find out if the Eagles found something in that come from behind win against the Rams, or if it was just one of those situations. Just everything just worked out. They were big deficits, Super Bowl champs, making a run, and they got pretty fortunate with a couple of bad kicks by the Rams. Or, hey, you know what? They did find something, and this is the beginning of the Eagles offense taking off. Well, it was not the beginning of the Eagles offense taking off. The Eagles went right back to being the Eagles offense in the game against Tampa Bay. They got outgained last week against Tampa Bay by nearly 200 yards. They have been outgained in all 4 games. And A.J. Brown, who broke out late against the Rams, had 2 catches for 7 yards once again. That's been Brown's line the other 3 games this season. He's done nothing in the first 3 games except the end of that Ram game in the second half. So they're not, and even the running game is suffering. They're just not, and they're throwing the fact on defense. The Kobe Dean's on the pup. Nolan Smith's out. He's on IR. Jalen Carter, one of the best defensive tackles, has a shoulder injury. He's looking at a second opinion. He might wind up getting surgery. He might not, but he's looking for other options. So you got to keep an eye on some of these other injuries for the Eagles as well. And I just think it's going to catch up to them. It will at some point. They're not going to go undefeated. So when will it catch up to them? And I think this is a pretty decent spot. The only thing I'm concerned with is the trip, the short week, and you know what we got to do next week? We got to go on another trip to London. So that's a lot. That's a lot of trips and distractions. But hey, what can focus you as a player is you're playing the world champs. It's one of the big games of the season. I just wish that the Broncos were playing a little bit better. They haven't really had. This is a team that still has a long way to go to look like the team that we thought that they were going to be this season. So who knows? Maybe this is the start for Denver. I just like it that it's bumped up 3.5 because I'm not taking the Eagles, that's for sure. Not the way they've been playing. If I'm taking the Eagles, I'm taking the money line. So I'm parlaying somehow the money line. All right. Maybe with a college upset or something. Next up. This is a game nobody wants to see unless you're a Giant fan or a Saint fan. The Saints are a favorite for the first time this year. They have beaten the Giants the last 2 years. This is a 3-year run for these two teams, which is a little interesting. We know there's no neighbors. We know it's a road start for a rookie quarterback, and the Giants are 6-2 against the spread their last 18 as a road dog. How about this crazy line? And this has everything to do with injuries. Of course, we all know Lamar Jackson won't be playing. Cooper Rush is going to start, so they do get the backup bump. So you got to keep that in mind. But they own Houston. And that's the reason why I just have a hard time taking Houston in this one, because they beat Houston last year 31-2 in Houston, and they have beat them 3 times since 2023, straight up ATS, including a playoff win by a 90-21 margin. 90-21. So they have dominated Houston in this series, but they are loaded with injuries, including their quarterback that you have to keep an eye on. Most of the key players lost are on defense besides Lamar. So check that out. Woody Marks had a big game for Houston last week, and they needed that because the running game was providing nothing for them. But Marks had a tremendous game because he had big plays on the ground, big plays through the air. That's what he is. He's a really good receiver out of the backfield. Look, it's one of those things where it's kind of hard for you to take Houston as a 1-point favorite at Baltimore, but this is not the same Baltimore team, and the defense continues to stink. Even though they've got injuries, sorry, but there's no excuse, because when they were healthy, they couldn't stop anybody with Orr as their coordinator. They've got to move on from this guy. I will be talking to Tony Lombardi, who covers the Ravens for the Russell Street Report, tomorrow. That's Thursday at 4:00 Eastern. So it'll be a short interview. I'm just going to ask him about what's going on with the Baltimore Ravens, their injuries, the coordinator on defense, and what the fans are talking about in Baltimore. So that's tomorrow at 4:00 Eastern. Cowboys favorite of the Jets by 2. Shoddy, who was a scapegoat by Jet fans, and I thought unfairly, when they were not able to get to the Super Bowl. They went back-to-back championship games under Rex Ryan, and Shoddy was the coordinator. And Shoddy gets a head coaching job for the first time with the Cowboys. And, of course, no CeeDee Lamb. And that should help the Jets because now Sauce will just have to go one-on-one with Pickens. And that makes things a little bit harder for Dallas, even though I expect Jake Ferguson to have a big game. And you need to take a look, though, at the Dallas offensive line. They have 3 players on the offensive line who are banged up and may not play. So keep an eye there. But also, look, the Jets, their top defensive lineman who missed all of last year, Jermaine Johnson. I'm not sure he's going to play again. He played 1 game and is out. They're already down Quincy Williams, their linebacker. He's going to miss another few games. And the Jets are just not playing well. Anyway, if I'm taking this game, I'm taking the Cowboys because the Jets right now in their head, they're in their head. And until they get their first win, but it has to be where they win and do it in a good way like they would have in the first game. And I'm telling you right now, this would be a completely different team if they had won that first game. But this is what happens when you're a losing team and losing franchise and you're used to losing. It's a snowball effect. And it's gotten really bad. turnovers against the Dolphins, penalties against the Dolphins, and how you just can't take the Jets. You can't. If you're taking this game, you have to take the Cowboys or don't take the game at all. Miami and Carolina. Here's another good one that people are going to be paying attention to for sure. No Tyreek Hill. That's a big blow for Miami. And even though they got a win last week, we all know what's going on there. It's also a short week for Miami. Carolina, meanwhile, remember, they've got some big injuries too. They have two starters on the offensive line that are out long-term. They've got two of their top 3 wide receivers who have been out the last few games, and I don't think they're going to play again this week. They may get Sanders back at tight end, so keep an eye on that. And they also have a couple of edge rushers who have been down. So, by the way, the Dolphins have had some injuries in the secondary. I'm not sure the Carolina Panthers could take advantage of that. But anyway, there you are. The Dolphins have covered 5 out of 6 as a road favorite since 2023. This is a game that I actually like. Arizona, the numbers come down to 7.5. And I'm happy about that because it was 9. So I wasn't really thrilled about giving up 9 the way Arizona's playing. Of course, I took Seattle as my top play last week, so you know where I was going there with Arizona. And look, Arizona has not outgained any team this year. They've been outgained in every game. But they're playing the Titans, all right? And out of my 3 top games last week, one of them was Houston for a reason. So, and Tennessee did not disappoint, getting shut out. I'm just surprised they did not fire the coach. Now, it might be a tougher deal to fire Callahan because they've also got his father as the offensive line coach. I don't think he's going to take over the job, even though he would be the perfect guy to go to. I don't. It's an ugly situation. I'm shocked that he's still here, the coach, and I think that you should take advantage of it. I really do. You know, if Tennessee has some sort of a veteran quarterback to turn to, we'll get him for the coach. They got a rookie. I mean, you can't count on Ward right now. Meanwhile, Arizona's getting some healthier players back. I know everybody's pointing to the running backs. Oh, they lost Derek Connor, they lost Benson, and that's all they're pointing to. But they're getting healthy in other areas, and that's important. So I actually think that it's not a big deal that they lost these running backs because they're playing the Titans. All right, Michael Carter is going to get the bulk of the carries. That Del Marcato kid is like a third down back. He'll stick to that role. So I think they'll be just fine against Tennessee. We'll see what they do after this. They've anyway, the fact is Titans have also covered just 5 out of the last 18 as a road dog. So I'm taking Arizona in this one for sure. This is a tough one because I like the Bucs. I've liked the Bucs the last few years. I've got Baker Mayfield as my dynasty starting quarterback for a reason. And Seattle has done good for me as well. And I really like the direction of this franchise under McDonald because the defense is playing tremendously right now. They came through for us the last 2 weeks as our top picks against the Saints in Arizona, but I'm just not sticking with them here. I know the Bucs are dealing with injuries, and they are. I can't see Bucky Irving playing this week. Okay. He was seen in a cast and on crutches. So I can't imagine he's playing this week. So they've already missed Mike Evans. So they got Evans out. They got the starting running back out. And we all know also about some of the offensive line issues. But they have Rachaad White. And Rachaad White can be a nice fill-in running back for a few weeks. There's nothing wrong with Rachaad White as a starting running back. They also get Godwin back second week. Agbuka. So even that position is not entirely lost. But the defense is where they're a little bit, the secondary has been okay, but front seven, they've had, especially the pass rush, Reddick now is coming off a concussion. I don't know if he's going to play this week. Gaines, Dean, not sure about their status, but they've covered 11 of the last 14 as a road dog. Actually, 11 of 14 as a road dog since 2023 when Baker Mayfield took over. So Baker and the Bucs, 11-3 as road dogs, 1-0 in that spot this year. They just haven't had as many injuries, though, with some of those other wins. You have to keep that in mind. And the Bucs will be hosting San Francisco and then they're going on the road to Detroit after this. So they got some really big games here in these. I mean, with the Eagles last week, Seattle this week, it's a really tough stretch for the Bucs. Seattle, meanwhile, they've won 3 straight, as you know. and relatively healthy compared to the rest of the league, that's for sure. So they've had their own problems, but Tampa Bay has a lot more. I don't know. I mean, at 3.5, they're actually begging me now to take Tampa Bay, and I'm going to oblige probably, because this now I can take the Bucs at 3.5 or 4, and I can still lose the game and cover. And I think that's what might happen. So look, anytime you have Baker back there, you got Tristan Wirfs, you've got Godwin, Egbuka. You still have some big players on defense, Levante David, Anton Winfield, good secondary. There's still players on this team. All right. And I'm getting 3.5, and in a role that the Bucs have been really good at. In this one, Detroit, the line is ballooned up to 10. I guess I'm not surprised, but you do need to keep this in mind. The Bengals are going to be throwing out there, even though it's Browning, Chase and Higgins. And it's possible they're going to be throwing the football to two of the best receivers in the game, to the Detroit third and fourth string corners. That's because Terrion Arnold and DJ Reed may not play. Now, Reed is definitely not playing. He's out. He's got a hamstring injury. Arnold is actually, I think he's 40% at this point. That doesn't mean he's not going to play, but that's where I put him today. That's not good. Throw in the fact that once again, they lose Davenport a couple of weeks ago. We talked with Jeff Riston before the season began about how desperate the Lions were to keep Davenport healthy because of their pass rush was really the one question mark as far as depth on the team. And Davenport goes out and gets injured again. The Lions have got to find a way to get another edge rusher in there before the deadline if they really want to win a Super Bowl. But everything else, you love the Lions. How do you not? They've covered 11 out of 13 the last 2 years as a road favorite. They have covered 18 out of 20 off a double-digit spread win. They want to know in that spot this year. And under Dan Campbell, they're 20-4 on the road against the spread. 1-1 this year. They did lose that first one, of course, at the Packers. Okay, so yeah, I mean, in this one, it's one of those deals where it just seems, and Detroit does have to go to Kansas City next week. It's just another one of those situations where, because it's a big number, and the Bengals have played so poorly the last couple of weeks on the road, this is now a home game. And I kind of feel that I would expect them to play better this week. Because if they don't, then they are in major trouble. So their backs are against the wall. I think they're going to get their best effort at home. I can't tell you to take the Bengals, though, that's for sure. I got to logically lean towards the Lions. All right, Washington and the Chargers, and this line is going down a little bit because it looks like Jaden Daniels is going to play. And so big news for Washington. But, McLaurin is still out. I haven't heard if Noah Brown's coming back. So they're still down now. And they like to throw the football. Remember, this is a team that does not have a big ground attack. So you take a couple of starting receivers out. That's not good. The Chargers, meanwhile, 5-1-1 as a home favorite against the spread under Harbaugh. But we know now, of course, that Alt's out for a couple of weeks. So they've got their bookends out of this game. And Becton's been banged up. Pipkins has been banged up. Khalil Mack, of course, is still out. So the Chargers have their share of injuries as well. Washington has not won or covered on the road so far. This is a tough one to call for myself. I'd still lean towards the Chargers, though, very, very smallly. Okay, the Bills, this line has now gone up to 8.5. And that's because, and I do like Buffalo, and that's because of the fact that we have gotten news today that Ed Oliver, Matt Milano, and their starting tackle, that tall behemoth Brown, are all practicing. And they have missed time over the last several weeks. Brown was out last week, Oliver 3 weeks, Milano 2 weeks. So they've all returned to practice. And now Buffalo can kind of gear up again for a meaningful game. Because I don't think they felt there was a meaningful game against the Dolphins or the Saints. But now you got the Patriots. This is supposed to be the team that's trying to catch us, second place team. They've won a couple of games. They've had their moments this season. But it's Sunday Night Football. It's a home game for the Bills. And I just feel good about, look, if you're going to take a team, and there's not a lot of games I like this week. So if you're going to take a game, why not take the Bills as an 8-point favorite here? I think that's a pretty good way to go. The Patriots have been home 3 out of 4 games. Remember, this is only their second road game. The first one was their win in Miami. They have covered Buffalo 4 times the last 2 years, winning 2 of those games, even though the one last year was a meaningless game at the end of the season. But yeah, I still think that the Bills getting these players back home, prime time, I think they'll get it done. And I think 8 is a fair number to go with. And then we're going to wrap it up in the NFL with the Chiefs and the Jags. I don't think this spread can go much further. I guess 4 it could. It just all depends on how many people are just going to throw it all in on the Chiefs and their back and all that. But the longer that number goes up, or the more that number goes up, the more I don't like the Chiefs, because I don't want to go back to the situation where, the Chiefs haven't convinced me yet that just because they're maybe back, that they're going to start covering games again, especially if the spreads start going up. So it's 1 week against a Raven team that was reeling and banged up with injuries. So I'm not saying that I don't like the Chiefs, because I do. I just don't want to see this number blow up any more than that, because the Jags are a very confident team right now. They're not as talented as the Chiefs, but they're very confident. And that can go a long way, prime time at home. But that's actually not a good spot for the Jags franchise. They are 1-6 against the spread their last 7 Monday Night Football games. And they also have a big 0-4. This is a playbook special. Okay. Playbook special from Mark Lawrence. 0-8 against the spread when they take on an opponent with a win percentage, a non-division opponent with a win percentage of less than 666, coming off an upset victory. So there you go. Out of the NFL games, I would say the ones that I like the most then, and I'll have the contest, the Wise Guy contest that I have to put in my picks this week. So I'm probably looking at Arizona, Tampa Bay, Kansas City, Dallas, Buffalo as the top choices. Cleveland and the Rams are a possibility as well. I don't know what it is about the NFL this season. Maybe it's just the way the NFL is going to be from now on, but I just don't like the NFL week to week as much as I like college. And I know I get a much, much larger variety to choose from. It's just, seriously, I mean, that's why I was so happy to take Seattle last week, get it over with on Thursday too. But I felt a lot better last week in those 3 games. This week, I would take any of those 3 teams I took last week over the top team this week in the NFL. So, yeah, I'd probably stick with this scenario, taking either Buffalo or Kansas City, because those are 2 elite teams, or taking Arizona because they're playing the worst team. It's probably the way I'll go about it if I was going to pick, say, a top 3 this week. Okay. Let's talk college now. I think it's time to talk college. One more thing, and that is the Survivor contest. So we're still in it. I have the 2 entries at BetOnline. And where are they? And this week, I am going with Arizona and Detroit. Now, I could change my mind, of course, but I think that's what I put in already, and I probably won't change my mind. So by doing that, I'm done with Detroit, because I used Detroit in the other entry already. So I'll be done with Detroit. The only other game that I looked at in the schedule that I would consider Detroit is they're playing the Giants in a month or so. And the only thing I was a little bit concerned with there was, even though it's at home and I like them, is that it's sandwiched in between 2 big games. It could be one of those sandwich games. But anyway, how is Detroit going to lose to Cincinnati this week? The way the Bengals are playing, right? Then again, those injuries in the secondary. That's why, I still could talk myself out of this and save myself for the Giant game later in the year. But I'm leaning towards Arizona and Detroit as far as the Survivor contest. All right, let's talk some college football. Let's check the rankings out first. All right, so nothing really changed in the rankings at all. Look at this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The same 8 teams in the group of 5. The only change at all, I even kept UNLV at 10, was Navy coming in and replacing Texas State. That's it. So I'll throw Navy a bone. I do like them this week against Air Force. We'll get into that a little later. And then in the top 12 playoffs, we have a new number one, that is Oregon, dethroning our previous number one, Penn State. We've dropped them to 5, and a lot of changes here, which just shows you, again, college football. I'm telling you, this is going to change every week. This is what I love about this season's college football. There are no teams even from last year's. See, every year we're saying it, especially recently, where we'll go. I remember saying last year that, the teams, the Alabama team from 3 or 4 years ago would have definitely beat the Georgia team would have definitely beat that sort of thing this year. But now I'm already saying it again this year. It's like, well, last year's Ohio State, Oregon, they would definitely beat this year's Ohio State, Oregon. Again, this is just opening up so many possibilities. It's going to be so awesome this season in college football because anybody can win the championship. There's going to be so many options. There's going to be nice sleepers that nobody would even consider in the playoffs. And you have to be proactive with that. Don't wait for the story to be made. Be part of the story. Go there and say, you know what? Yeah, I think Vanderbilt or Missouri, I think one of those teams will be in the playoffs. Yeah. Laugh at me now. You'll see something like that. You got to again. There will be several teams in the playoffs this year that will probably be just as surprising as Indiana was last year. So I think we're going to double or triple the surprising nature of that this year. And this is a great example. It's just there's so many different things you can do here. So with my rankings, I moved Texas A&M up. Miami moves up just a little bit. Texas, even though they move up, this is a big week for Texas, and we'll get into that. Alabama, our preseason semifinal pick, is now looking like a semifinal pick again. Ole Miss, we've moved in there. Both Alabama and Ole Miss into the top 10 for the first time, top 12 for the first time. Notre Dame is back as well. They should be. How about that pick last week, huh? How funny was that? We'll talk about that later. Oklahoma, they've got to move down because of Mateer's injury. I'm not going to knock them out of the top 12 because of the injury. We got to see how look, it's Kent State. It couldn't be any perfect setup for Oklahoma than getting the backup quarterback to play Kent State this week. So that's like a preseason game. That's the perfect situation. And Indiana, even though they won, we already talked about it. And they're South Florida. Okay, so let's go over the games. And we start, as always, in the SEC. And here's our game of the year. That's our team. That's our boy, Pavia. Game of the year. Imagine how everything can change if Vandy can win this game. And what I mean by that is that everybody will jump on the bandwagon that I am driving right now. But even if they lose this game, which they probably will, I still believe in them. And I still believe that they're going to make a run for the playoffs this year. And until I see something that changes my mind about that, I'll let you know. But I think this has the meaning. Look, I mean, when was the last time that you could have ever thought that Vanderbilt would be getting only 10 points at Alabama? Even last year, they were getting what? 24 or something when Vandy beat them. So what a sign of respect. And so here's Vandy only getting 10.5. And you know what? Even though it's only 10.5, I'm still loving the points. All right. So here you go. Now, what's great about when you find a team or a player, whatever, both, and you find a number of trend networks, no offense to Mr. Krakenberger, who was a guest on the show earlier today at the restaurant, but trends do matter. And they matter only if they matter to you, each individual handicapper. Some handicappers, Jim Feist doesn't care about trends. Krakenberger doesn't care about trends. The Crackman with a K. That's important to note. The Crackman with a K. We don't want to go with the other direction. But the Crackman with a K, hey, if it works for you, great. But, I wouldn't. Now, look, there are probably a lot of people out there that use trends that don't know what the fuck they're talking about. And I'm sure that's exactly who the crack man is talking about. But then you get people like Mark Lawrence, who makes his living on trends. And that's where I've come from. I've come from the Mark Lawrence learning school of wagering. And then I've also learned how to wager the way Jim Feist does. So I get the best of both worlds. But when it comes to trends, hey, if it works for you and it's a winning formula for you, then who cares, where you're getting the wins from, as long as it works for you. And this is one of those situations that has worked for me, taking Vanderbilt in this situation, because I'm going to lose. At some point, I'll lose. At some point, Vandy will not cover a game on the – well, I shouldn't say that, because Pavia only has a few more of these games left before he graduates. So it's possible Pavia may not lose in this spot. And once he leaves, I'll tell you right now, I'll be pretty much off of Vanderbilt, depending on who they bring in. But this is probably going to be the only time in my life I'm ever going to be behind Vanderbilt like I have been the last year and a half. And here's why. Pavia has covered 14 of 16 as a road dog, 2-0 straight up and against the spread this year in that role. The Vandy Commodores have covered 7 straight as a road dog since last year, 2-0 this year. And they're also 5-2 straight up in those 7. And one of them, of course, being the upset of Alabama. And another one, Vandy is 9-1 against the spread on the road when they take on an opponent off of an upset win, like Alabama is. Now, there's one good and one positive on Alabama. On the bad, to stick with the whole Vandy deal, Alabama is 0-6-2 against the spread in their last 8 off of an upset win. So I'm sorry, but what that tells me is, whatever the case may be, when Alabama is riding high, and how often is Alabama an upset, a dog, first of all? Second of all, they've got to win. So it's very rare that these things happen. And so when it happens, for whatever reason, and they have to be a very good team, obviously, because if Alabama's a dog, just imagine who they're a dog to, and they're riding this high, that they come back down to earth. Now, I would guess a lot of those situations are Alabama being a much bigger favorite, though. Okay, so you do have to keep that in mind. And here's one that works for Alabama. 22-7-1. Their last 30 is a home favorite since 2020, and they're 2-0 this year. All right, so that does worry me, and it's why I'm not. And plus, it's Alabama. I like this team, Alabama. So this is definitely not, say, Georgia, where I would be on Vandy, like 100%. This one, I'm on them, but I'm also just weary of, it's only 10.5. Alabama lost to them last year, so they know what to expect. Home favorite. So there are some things that are concerning me a little, but I'm still going to just go head all in, not as much as I normally would, but I'm still diving all in on Vanderbilt, both as a money line double-digit upset and definitely taking the 10.5. All right, let's run through the rest of the SEC. Texas is a 6.5-point favorite against Florida. And check this out, because this is going to be an ugly game. Texas is 4th in the nation in defense, while Florida has the 115th ranked offense in the country. Florida also has the 22nd ranked defense in the country. So look, I mean, Florida has lost all three of their FBS games straight up and against the spread by a 33-64 margin. That's not a lot of points being scored. So this is going to be a low-scoring game, you got to imagine. But Florida's schedule, just take a look at their schedule, how tough it is. So they got a really at some point, if you're going to turn your season around, it has to happen the sooner the better with this murderous schedule they're dealing with. And this is a winnable game, I guess, because we still haven't seen Texas play a great game yet this season. But it looks like they're going to get their top 2 running backs in the game returning, and Baxter and Wisner. That's important, especially since they haven't been able to run the ball that effectively this season. And but they are only given 6.5. It's a pretty low spread considering how poorly Florida has played this year. One number you want to keep an eye on is Florida has covered 5 straight at home following a bye. So that's been something that has worked well for them in the past. I'm not touching this game because I just don't. I'd be guessing what's going to happen. I'd be guessing that Texas is going to play their best game, and I don't know if I can do that. If somebody wanted to tell me that they thought Florida was going to pull the upset, I'd be okay. I wouldn't think that would be the craziest thing to say. Well, Mississippi State, they almost came through for us in the money line, but they certainly did overall in covering the 8 last week as a 7-point loss in a game that they probably should have found a way to win or could have found a way to win. The game was there for the taking against Tennessee. They just couldn't take it. They have covered all 4 of their games this year, and I think that matters. Texas A&M, meanwhile, 1-3 against the spread this year. The Bulldogs are also 4-1 ATS as a road dog under head coach Jeff Lebby. This is his second year. And A&M is 3-11 against the spread as a favorite under Elko in his second year. So this has been a good spot for the Bulldogs under Lebby and a bad spot for A&M under Elko. And I'm taking Mississippi State into 15. I'll sprinkle a couple of bucks on the money line. Maybe do something since it's a night game. I might do something with maybe like one of those games we talked about. Like let's say if you like the Eagles, like I said, and wanted to take the money line, this is one of those things that I would do. I would take Mississippi State money line with the Eagles money line, something like that. I'm not going to take the Eagles, but you might want to do that. Oh, that's it for the SEC. Let's now go to the Big Ten. And we're going to start already with a game I like, and it's Michigan against Wisconsin. I've been burying Luke Fickell all season, and why not? Luke Fickell, he's done. He's not going to survive this season. It's over for Luke Fickell. They need to find someone else to come back there to Wisconsin. Who knows who that'll be? I don't know why I said to come back there. But they need to bring in you think Brett Bielema would go back? I don't know if there's bad blood there. Anyway, Wisconsin needs to find someone that understands how to win in Wisconsin, not someone that wants to change the way things are done at Wisconsin, the way Fickell failed at miserably. They have scored over 18 points just once this year. That was against Middle Tennessee State from the worst conference in the FBS. They are taking on a Michigan team that has found an identity. They do get Sharon Moore back. So, and with that identity, a couple of things to keep in mind. Michigan is under Harbaugh predominantly a smash mouth. We're going to power run football you to death. And Moore is an offensive line coach background. But he was very smart a couple of weeks ago after they lost the line of scrimmage game to Oklahoma and realized that they had some big losses along the offensive line. They can't match up in that fashion anymore. So he went now to a zone scheme to utilize the athleticism of the Michigan offensive line. And since then, it's worked to a T in their last 2 games, including dominating the line of scrimmage against Nebraska last week, the week prior. Of course, they've had to bye since then. Look, I mean, the one reason I don't like this has gone over 17 is because Michigan's 11-1 against the spread. Their last 12 is a home favorite of less than 17. So that's the come down a little bit. Anyway, keep an eye on Justice Haynes because he is a dark horse. I say a dark horse Heisman guy because if you're a running back, anybody is a dark horse Heisman winner. Wisconsin has actually played Michigan as tough as anybody lately. They've beaten them 5 out of the last 8 times. But I looked at Michigan here, especially off of the bye, to hammer-size Wisconsin is the best way they can. And I'm not afraid to give up 17. I think Wisconsin needs one of these losses too, because they've lost ugly the last year and a half under Fickell. But I think they just need one of those really bad losses for people to start putting like news about how bad Wisconsin's been under Fickell lately. Maybe this is the game that'll do it. Now, initially, you look at this line and you're going, how in the world is Illinois only giving Purdue 10? Well, then you realize, well, there's a reason. And that's because Purdue has owned Illinois over the last 5 years. They've beaten them 4 out of 5. And the only time they didn't beat them last year, they lost a 50-49 game as a 22-point dog on the road. So Purdue had, and that was a terrible Purdue team. So they've just owned Illinois. Sorry, trend. And I can't take Purdue though. I'm definitely not taking them to win. After the way Illinois bounced back and beat USC, they're not going to lose to Purdue now. That would be crazy. And they've also covered 6 straight as a conference road favorite the last 10 years. So this has been a good roll for Illinois, which is why, again, if I'm taking the game, I'm taking Illinois. But Purdue has owned this rivalry, so I'll stay away. Penn State, I get the feeling that it's possible after what happened last week that their offense is going to stay on the field for as long as it takes in order for them to put up as many points as possible. So, and Franklin's been known to do this. So I think UCLA could be in a lot of trouble, especially if Penn State gets off to a quick 14-0 lead in the first quarter. Their offense, obviously, has not looked good so far this season. I blame the coordinator myself. I think that they don't know how to use Drew Aller. They just don't. Drew Aller. They don't know how to use him. And I still think there's more than enough time to fix things at Penn State. And that's why they got to fix things. They got to start this week. They got to fix their offense. And so they are going to do what they need to do to put up big points. They've covered 16 of 21 as a road favorite. And UCLA has a bad defense. So they put up quite a number of yards this season. And I could see Penn State getting healthy. It's the Rose Bowl. It's a West Coast trip. I get it. But, hey, everybody wants to play in the Rose Bowl, which is why this is a really nice job. And I hear some of the Big Ten channel analysts saying that they think PJ Fleck would be a perfect fit at UCLA. And I agree. Look, UCLA should better hire a credible coach, because this is a program that should be amazing. They have they've got a Rose Bowl stadium to sell. They've got the weather in Southern California to sell. They've got tradition to sell. They've got recruiting fertilization around them like no other. It's amazing that UCLA is where they are, but that just shows you it all starts at the top. And UCLA, the people who are in charge there, they're a bunch of morons. All right, Washington and Maryland. I'm a little bit surprised the line has gone up, but maybe not so, because Maryland, even though they've won all their games this year, and they came up with a big upset win at Wisconsin a couple of weeks ago or last week, whatever it was, they just really haven't beaten anybody. Meanwhile, they're 0-5 ATS at home following a week of rest. That's all with Loxley, I believe. So whatever that is, he hasn't done well as a coach figuring that out. Washington may not be a bad team to go against next week. I know Rutgers is playing, and I just talking like the spread, because I could see Washington, if they win this game, being a 7-point favorite or bigger next week. And then keep in mind, Washington will be going, they're going to be getting dizzy, because they'll be West Coast, East Coast, Maryland, back to West Coast traveling in a 3-week span. That could take a little bit out of you. I don't understand why this line is 11.5, even though, as you know, I really like Louisiana Monroe as a sleeper in the Sun Belt, in that division, not the whole thing. And so far, so good. They've won 3 out of 4. They're only lost against Alabama. But this is a Big Ten team, and it's not a bad Big Ten team. I mean, Northwestern is decent. I know they barely covered UCLA, and I get that. But still, I mean, this is Louisiana Monroe. If Northwestern can't cover 11 against Louisiana Monroe, that's not good. Speaking of 11 points, Nebraska, this spread is a little too high for me. Both teams are 3-1. Both teams are 1-2 against the spread. I can see this game being, I'd probably take the points if I was taking the game, because I could see this game being a 4-quarter game. And then you got Ohio State, who should have no problem against Minnesota. All right, now ACC. And I actually like Clemson. I'm going to be talking to Phil Kornblut later tonight at 9 o'clock Eastern. So I'm going to have a conversation with him to find out what the heck is going on with Clemson. They're coming off a bye. And, of course, Antonio Williams came back in the first game against Syracuse. So now he's going to be ready to go, unless there was a setback I'm unaware of. So I want to find out from Phil, is there a chance? Can their season be saved? Not going 7-5. I'm talking, can they make a run? So we'll find out. If you want to know about that, that's at 9 o'clock tonight. I think they will start making a run. And this is the perfect reason why. North Carolina has one of the worst offenses in all of college football. The only thing I'm afraid of is that they might actually replace Gio Lopez, because Max Johnson has a lot more experience as a credible Power 4 quarterback than Gio Lopez. So I just hope Gio Lopez is healthy and gets the start. But I don't think it's going to matter. I think getting the week off to kind of get going again is exactly what Clemson needs. North Carolina, by the way, 0-4 against the spread their last 4 as a home dog since 2020. And Clemson has beaten North Carolina 6 straight times. I think they'll win and cover this one, even though it's a big spread. This game is all about Desmond Reed. Desmond Reed was injured, and really, if you look at it, you might be saying, oh, Pittsburgh, what a disappointing season. Not so much. They were undefeated. They go to Morgantown at the big backyard brawl. They had a big early lead. They lose Desmond Reed. Desmond Reed is their best player. The running back Desmond Reed. He's their best player. They lose him. They go on to lose the game. Then next week comes Louisville. No Desmond Reed, even though they got off to a 14-0 lead, I think, in that game. They blew that, lost the game. Now Desmond Reed looks like he's on his way to playing again this week. So keep that in mind, because if I hear Desmond Reed doesn't play, I want Boston College. I'm taking him in the money line. But if Desmond Reed's back, that is all I need to just stay away from the game entirely. I just think that these two teams are not that different. I think Pitt's a little bit better than they are. But again, only if Desmond Reed is playing. Virginia Tech is now back to playing better ball with their interim coach. All I know is this. I've seen this before, time in and time again. If Virginia Tech winds up going to a bowl this season, please do not hire the interim coach unless the interim coach is really good. And most of the time, the ADs will hire the guy, and not even because they're just too stupid. Oh, he did a good job and they were bad before he came, and let's just give him the job. But that, you know what goes into being a head coach? Some of these ADs don't get it. So I just hope whatever happens with Virginia Tech, as I said before, they deserve to find a quality coach at this program, because they are traditionally a really good football program, and they've lost their way. But again, getting back to the fact that since they've fired their coach, Pry, they are now undefeated at 2-0, beating North Carolina State last time out. Wake Forest, of course, almost upset Georgia Tech last time out. It's their first road game. They're headed in the right direction with Dickert, their head coach, but I think it'll take them a while. Wow, our Virginia Cavaliers came through for us last week, upsetting Florida State. That was an awesome game. Everybody saw that. It really worked out perfectly for us, and it's great to get off to the start that we got off to last week, hitting both Virginia and Arizona State on, what was it, Thursday night? Or Friday night, I think. Anyway, Virginia. Now, here's the thing that you have to be worried about is coming down to earth after the monumental victory that they had, Tony Elliott's biggest win, and that's definitely a concern. What might happen, and we talked about this remember last week when I picked FAU to win against Memphis, and I said, well, at the very least, and I don't take half lines, but at the very least, maybe you should take FAU in the first half against Memphis after their big win against Arkansas. And that's exactly what happened. FAU, I think they were leading at halftime of that game, and then Memphis just buried them in the second half. So that's probably what I would do here as well, is if I was going to take this game, I'd probably feel safer taking Louisville in the first half, even though Virginia, it's not like we're talking about some traditional power. I could just turn it on or anything like that. But I don't know. Again, I'm not a Habs guy, so I'm just going to stick with Virginia here, though. But I don't know. I mean, the money line is tempting. I'll probably do that. I think it's as good as a 7.2-1 money line as that's available. So I have no problem doing that. And just taking the 7, though, these trends are important. Virginia has covered 12 out of 13 as a conference dog of 6 or more. And they're 1-0 in that spot this year because of their cover last week. And then Louisville has dropped both covers as a home favorite this year. Even though they won both, they have not covered both. Bye week comes up for Louisville, followed by a big matchup at Miami. But hey, Virginia comes to town. This is a big one. And I think Virginia, look, it's just all about whether Virginia can come back down to earth or if they can stay above earth. Because if this was not after that big of a game and this was just a game on its own island, I would definitely like Virginia as a moneyline play. Next, Syracuse, how a season can fall apart. Angeli, the quarterback, the Notre Dame transfer, was playing great. And then he has an Achilles injury, and in the game, I think it was late against Clemson. And so he's gone. He has 2 more years of eligibility, so that's good for Syracuse fans. But Ricky Collins came in and was terrible. And they get blown out by Duke last week. But it was right after Angeli got hurt. I'm sure the program was down in the dumps, and look at what our season could have been like. And what it also tells me, especially when the quarterback plays like that, is they knew what they were getting themselves into. They knew that their chance of having a special season after beating Clemson was wiped out with the injury. They knew what the backup was like, and they performed like it. Now, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they just needed a week to digest it. But look, I'm not taking this game because it's 17. It's way too many points for me. Syracuse, though, was just 1-10-1 against the spread off of a double-digit straight-up loss. SMU 17 here. Ooh, you get the big game, Miami and Florida State. Loving this. Both these two teams playing good football again. I think it's so funny. As soon as Florida State lost their game against Virginia, it was right back to hearing some analysts talking about, well, if Mike Norvell can save his job. And I mean, give the guy a break, will you? It takes him a couple of years to rebuild the mess he inherited. He gets the team. He would have been into the playoffs if it wasn't for the injury to the quarterback. Loses all of his starters, and he had to regroup last year. Didn't find the right mix of transfers and so forth, so it was a bad year. Starts the year off by upsetting Alabama, undefeated. Everything's back to where it was 2 years ago. He loses one game in a game that we predicted. So not that we didn't say that, we think Virginia's going to win because Florida State's bad. We just thought it was a good spot for Virginia with this game coming up. And that's exactly what happened. But I don't know, maybe they were Florida State backers who bet the game with Florida State thinking they were better and lost money, and now they want to fire Norvell. I don't know what the deal is, but they're wrong. Okay, Norvell's job, there's nothing wrong with it unless they end up losing 4 games again this year, and I don't see that happening. They just lost a game to a decent team. Look, Florida State is not back. Okay, this is not a championship team. We saw that on Friday. Okay, and that's what we wanted to see. We still felt that they could be a good team, but they were still getting, a little overblown because look at Alabama since that game. It happens every year in football, NFL, college football. One bad week, one good week to start the season, and everybody goes crazy. So anyway, Florida State still not better than Miami. Okay, that is definite. Miami is a better program today, but I like Florida State in the game. I just think that this game is really tailor-made for Florida State. Now, I'm not going to put a lot of money on this, but I think it's a good game, and I can get a little money on the money line if I want. I could get the 4.5 as well. It's the first road game for Miami, so you got to keep that in mind. Florida State had beaten Miami 3 straight times until Miami won last year. There's just, to me, I think there's a lot to like about taking the dog in a game that there's no reason to believe that this is not going to really be a slugfest, and either team will have a chance. And that's why I kind of like the home dog. I mean, I think it's a good place to go with the home dog in this spot under this scenario. And we'll see if Florida State can just pick themselves up and get it done. If Miami wins this game, though, I think this is the type of game that can really put them on the map as far as a serious national championship contender, because this is a real tough matchup for them or for anyone. And then the final one in the ACC, and this is actually a tough one. You've got a 4-1 Cal team against a 3-2 Duke team. Duke taking the West Coast trip, so you got to throw that in there. But they're 3-0 against the spread as a road favorite under Manny Diaz. So they haven't lost yet under Manny Diaz in the spot. 1-0 this year in this role. Cal is doing one of those San Diego State West games, go to the East to take on Boston College on the East Coast, back to the West Coast trips. No time off. So that's a lot of traveling east, and it's all the way east to all the way west. So that's a lot. They're also 9-2 against the spread as a home dog since 2020, 1-0 in that spot this year. So this has been a good roll for Cal. It's also homecoming for Cal. So I can't touch this game because I still think Duke's better. But Cal has had a really nice season so far. They had one bad game where they didn't show up. But the freshman, the true freshman quarterback has really been playing well for them. And, you know how much we like Mensa for Duke. I like Duke in this game, but I can't take the game. It's one of those games that probably just be fun to watch. And that's the ACC. And we wrap up the Power Four with the Big 12. Friday night, a game I like. I think BYU should slaughter West Virginia. We criticized Rich Rod's quarterback, and now he's not even available. So just imagine what the backups look like. Trust me, not good. So West Virginia, already a pretty weak offense, now has to play a really good defensive BYU program on the road, national TV night game. The only reason that I am a little bit apprehensive about giving up so many points is just that BYU's got the type of team that could win the game 24-3 or 24 or 20-3, which, and not cover that sort of thing. Because West Virginia's defense has actually played better than their offense has, but I suspect BYU should be able to cover even 19. Iowa State and Cincinnati, well, the Bearcats came through for us. We've been behind, the team this year. And, Sorsby's a quarterback they got there. And, we just decided that we were going to give him a shot. We're going to give the head coach Satterfield a shot. And this is one of those seasons that still could end his career here in a bad way if things fall off the rack the rest of the season. But they're off to an excellent start. They had a tough opening loss on the road at Kansas City to Nebraska. Now, there is one trend that works against them and works for Iowa State. The Cyclones have covered 7 of 9 as a road dog, while the Bearcats have dropped 9 out of 12 as a home favorite. So that's bad if you're taking Cincinnati. What's good are two other things. Iowa State has dropped 7 straight covers off of a straight-up ATS win when they're taking on an opponent with a 750 or greater win percentage like Cincinnati. And the second thing is I think Cincinnati is, like I said, at the beginning of the season, I just think this is going to be a good season for them. And they had a nice little road win last week at Kansas. And I don't look at Iowa State as some juggernaut. I think that they're vulnerable as an undefeated team. And I think this is another good opportunity for Cincinnati to have that really good season. And so that's why I'm taking the Bearcats to win this one against the Cyclones, especially since it's at home away from Ames, and that's important. Baylor is 6 against Kansas State. And the Wildcats, as we said last week, they needed to restart the engines. They had to buy, and they did, and they had a win over UCF. But it wasn't a pretty win. I mean, UCF had quarterback problems. We'll get into that in a little bit. And that definitely hurt their chances. So it wasn't like UCF is not one of the better teams in the conference either. So I wasn't impressed by Kansas State in any way. Baylor, meanwhile, is starting to, they're having a nice season overall. They've had a couple of hiccups to good teams in close games. They've also covered 7 straight with revenge on their minds, coming off a game when they scored 35 or more. Keep in mind, Kansas State has beaten Baylor the last 2 times they played them by a 90-28 margin. So you think Baylor has a little bit of double revenge here? I do. 6.5, a little bit high for me. I like Baylor, but it just won't be a top play. Here's a good one, and that's Texas Tech at Houston. I like the Red Raiders here. I just think they're a more talented team right now than Houston. Houston has played nobody so far this season. It's a nice start, though. We had him a couple weeks ago against Colorado, so we like Fritz. Things are going okay for Houston this year, but they're limited. They're not at the level of Texas Tech yet. And Texas Tech has just dominated every opponent they played. Even at Utah, a good opponent, dominated them. They've beaten Houston straight up 6 straight, covered 5 of those 6. And they're 14-2 in their last 16 coming off a bye. So whatever they do at Texas Tech for a week off, they come back and they are playing really good football. Morton, the quarterback, did not look good early against Utah, leaves the game with an injury. Then this Hammond redshirt freshman comes in, has a tremendous game, and they blew out Utah. Well, Morton's back, and he'll start. But doesn't that feel good if you're a Texas Tech fan that once Morton leaves this year, you've got this redshirt freshman waiting in the wings? Texas Tech has shown no signs of weakness offensively or defensively yet this season. And I just think Houston is starting to come up in a bit of company that's a little too imposing for them right now. I know it's a lot of points, but I still think Texas Tech is the way to go. This one's interesting because Colorado blew a 14-0 lead to BYU last week, and TCU blew a 17-0 lead to Arizona State last week. And these two teams now have to play each other. TCU is definitely the better team. There's no doubt about that. If you look at it, keep an eye on Eric McAllister. We talked highly of him after the SMU game last week, but he didn't play last week after the SMU game the week prior. That could have hurt them, I think, a lot against Arizona State. So keep an eye on whether or not he returns. It's a lot of points. I get that. I still take TCU. And I think this is the last one in the Big 12. And I like this one. This is probably one of my top picks in this conference this week because, again, Central Florida's got banged up quarterbacks. Tavian Jackson's a tough kid and all, but I don't know what to expect from that position. I don't think much. Kansas, meanwhile, Daniels, even though they lost like last week, had another great game. I just think they're being overmatched here, Central Florida, and Kansas coming off a loss. So I think they're going to be ready for this one, and it's not a lot of points to give up. So it's one of the better ones. Actually, I like this this week. Kansas giving 4 at Central Florida. Now, let's talk about the group of 5. A lot of games we like here, starting with Navy. Navy, an 11-point favorite against Air Force. David wants to know, am I a fan of 2-team teasers? No, I am not. I'm like Mark. I'm not. You know what I'd just rather do is like what I was saying before with the parlays. I'd rather, if I'm going to do a 2-team teaser, I'd rather just do like a parlay with, maybe like just taking one money line team that I like, that I'm getting 2-1 or 3-1 or something on, and match them with a couple of 7-point favorite teams, which is what fans like the most in teasers. They like to take those 7s and make them 1s, 6s and make them evens, and just do that. Take two minus 245 teams with a 3-1 money line play or a 250 money line play, make it a 3-team parlay and go that route. I just rather do that. Anyway, but in general, I don't like them because I played them years ago when it first came out. Never heard of them. I'm talking 40 years ago. When I was a teenager, I played them and thought it was the best thing in the world. I'm getting all these points. How this is easy. And no, it was never. It just, no. It's a sucker's bet. Okay. Navy and Air Force. And in this one, I like Navy. This is one of my better plays this week. I think that, especially since it's a rivalry game, they're going to be firing on all cylinders for 4 quarters. They're not going to stop. And that's important when you give an 11. Air Force is clearly not capable of stopping anybody this season. And Navy's got Horvath. They got a good running back. They got a good receiver. This is a good offense. They should put up a ton of points in this one. Navy snapped their 4-game losing streak to Air Force last year, beat them by 27. I can see them doing the same thing this year. Air Force has lost all 3 FBS games this year by a 47-34 average margin. And that's what I'm expecting here and more, because, again, Navy is one of the better teams Air Force is playing. Air Force has dropped 6 straight spreads versus teams with winning percentages of 750 or higher. 0-1 in that spot this year. Their only road game, they lost to Utah State by 19. So I am all over Navy. Here's going to be one of our upsets. So if you're looking for a plus 230, this is one I'm going with. Jalen Kitna is having a fine season at UAB. He's the reason, if you're a Blazers fan, that you want to show up to the game. And I still don't know if Kitna is the right guy for the job, but I think this could be a turning point game for the program. They need something. They got to get because they're definitely better than last year, without a doubt. And Army is definitely not better than last year. And this is usually a good spot for Army. They've covered 7 out of 9 on the road as a favorite since 2022. And you would think that, at 1-3, it's inevitable they'll win this game and move on. But I think this is a good spot to gamble that maybe this is the game that gets UAB going. Now, maybe they've only got one of these in them all season, and maybe it's not going to be a turning point season. Maybe Dilfer will get fired. But, they've got a young quarterback that in this conference, in this type of a matchup, I think he's as good as you're going to see. So I think they got a shot. And so, why not? Roll the dice with UAB and Jalen Kitna. This one's tough because I told you I like Temple as a dog this year to upset a couple of teams, and this definitely would qualify. So this is one of them. I'm still not sure I'm going to go this route as an outright upset because UTSA is one of the better teams in the American, and they're really good in this spot under Jeff Traylor. They have, because I believe most of these games have come under Traylor, who's been there for 6 years. They're 7-1 against the spread off of a bye. So that's really good preparation for a coach. And especially if it's one coach predominantly. They've owned Temple. They've only played them a couple of times the last couple of years, but they've, had them win these games easy, straight up and against the spread. But Temple has covered 12 straight as a home dog of less than 7 with revenge. 12 straight. So I will be taking Temple and maybe even throwing a little bit on that money line because I did say I'd be taking Temple to win at least 1 or 2 as an upset this week. And I think that's it for the American. Let's go to the Mountain West. How about New Mexico? This is a really nice story. Jason Eck has come over from Idaho, and already New Mexico has been impressive. They had that 17-point loss at Michigan when everybody thought they'd get annihilated, and they have followed that up by winning 3 straight games, and they have they've looked fine. Now they haven't played another decent opponent like this on the road, and San Jose State is still considered decent. This has been a disappointing start for San Jose State, though. They're 1-3. There was more expected from them this season. But I'm a little bit surprised the line's only 2.5. San Jose State's still better than New Mexico. And that's why, even though I like what I see out of New Mexico, I'd rather take them in a spot where I'm a 8-point dog or a 10-point dog, and I can jump on them on a money line play. That's when I'm going to take New Mexico. But here I get no value here. Especially since even though they're off to a really good start and the quarterback Jack Lane followed Eck over from Idaho, and there's also some really good, they've hit really nicely on some of these transfers, running back, quarterback, receiver, which is very surprising for New Mexico. But San Jose State is 15-5 straight up in their last 20 home games, and they did lose their only home game this year already. So I just think it's a tough spot, and again, no value here to take New Mexico. Same thing here with San Diego State. No value. I'm surprised the line has ballooned up to 6, but San Diego State, the defense is back. They've had 2 shutouts already this season, and Colorado State is 103rd nationally in offense. So that's not a good sign. They have not scored more than 21 points yet in any game this season. There are conflicting trends, though. Colorado State has covered 13 of 14 on the road when they take on an opponent with a 750 or better win percentage, while San Diego State head coach Sean Lewis is 10-3 straight up and against the spread taking on the opposition, coming in off of back-to-back straight-up losses. He's 1-0 in that spot already this year. He's also, Lewis, in that same situation, back-to-back straight-up losses, 6-0 straight up and against the spread when his team owns a win percentage of 400 or better. 1-0 in that spot this year. This is from last week's game in their crazy 6-3 win at Northern Illinois when they kicked the field goal as the time expired. So, yeah, I just don't like the point spread. That's all. Oh, how about our Notre Dame Fighting Irish, who really came through us against Arkansas last week? How funny was that when we were talking about that line last week? And we just could not figure out why the line went from 6.5 to 4.5. It made no sense to us. We went over the reasons why. They were one of our top picks, as you know, and they just annihilated Arkansas. And I didn't expect that, but kind of in a way I did. I mean, I don't know what that was doing. I mean, what were people watching with Notre Dame? I mean, I'm sorry, but if you think Notre Dame is just going back to being Notre Dame, this is a different era. This is Mark Freeman knows what he's doing. And I already think Notre Dame, and we'll talk more about the futures in the next couple of days on the other shows, especially the Friday show more than likely. I think Notre Dame is a good future play. They're 25-1 right now to win the championship. I take them. Boise, but I will say this. In liking Notre Dame last week, this is different. I mean, the line went from 17 to 20. That's big. I don't know. Did I miss something? Is Madsen playing? Because I haven't seen anything. Yeah, I don't know why this has gone up to 20. Unless people are looking at, well, the last time Boise was on the road against South Florida, they lost by 20 or something. So now they're playing Notre Dame. I don't know if that's, but Boise, look, here's the thing. We took South Florida to beat Boise State week 1. We took Notre Dame to crush Arkansas last week. So we have as much right as anybody to understand what we're dealing with here with these two teams. And I just think this is too many points. I think Boise is still look, they're not as good as they were last year, because how could they be with Ashton Jeanty gone? And they did lose a really good pass rusher, but they still have a lot of talent there. They still have their quarterback returning. This is a dangerous team. This is a program that wins. They know how to win. I just think this is too many points. I don't look at Boise State as look. If Notre Dame was undefeated, I'd look at the upset. Oh, maybe Notre Dame's, like the Northern Illinois game. Hey, if they could lose to Northern Illinois, they could able to lose to Boise. Watch out. But at 2 losses already, Notre Dame, they're alert for everything. They have to play every single week like it means the championship. And they're just playing now. They're coming off the game of the year for them. And I just can't imagine they just like that lose to Boise State. But I still think it's a lot of points. Notre Dame has covered 9 out of 13 as a home favorite, but they're just 1-1 in that spot this year. So there you go. Here we have one of our double-digit dog plays. We're going to take Nevada against Fresno, and we're getting 4-1. Nevada, as we mentioned before the season began, was a nice little. They weren't an official sleeper, but we were intrigued. Keep an eye on them. We'll see what happens. Year 2, Choate, head coach. You would think, well, they're 1-3. Why are you okay? Well, keep this in mind now. Still, since last season under Choate, they have 7 losses by 7 or less. Take a look at the last 2 games. They led Middle Tennessee State 13-0 in the fourth quarter, and they lost by 1. The next week, they lost. They were up 10-3 at half to Western Kentucky. They lost by 15, and they were the dog in that game. They weren't the better team in that game. They are also 10-1 against the spread. Their last 11 as a conference road dog of 13 or less. So you do have to keep that in mind, because it's now up to 14. Okay, so it's gone from 13 to 14, so that might not work. But Fresno has lost the yards battle to both Oregon State and Hawaii. Matter of fact, they lost the yards battle to Oregon State by over 200 yards and still came away with that win because they're 4-1. Fresno is 0-5 against the spread versus a losing conference opponent that has revenge on their minds. So there was a whole bunch of things, but the main thing is this has been a competitive team that has lost competitively under Choate since he's been there, and I'm getting a whopping 14 in this one. Is Fresno a better team? Yes. They're at home. They deserve to be the favorite, but I think they should be more like 7-10. To be honest, I think 14 is asking for me to just jump all over Nevada. But again, anytime you're dealing with double-digit upsets, the team you take, it can embarrass you. But I think this is as good as a double-digit bet as I can come up with in this scenario. And that's it for the Mountain West. Now let's go to the Sun Belt. And James Madison are picking the Sun Belt this year, and our what were they? They were actually our number one pick, I believe, in the group of 5 when the season began. But we're definitely taking them here. They're 3-0 against the spread this year. Georgia State 0-3 against the spread. And Georgia State also 1-8 ATS. That's conference home dogs of 7 or more. 0-6 ATS at home after they allow 35 or more. So I'm all over James Madison here. I'm actually thinking of taking Oregon State here. But anytime you take an 0-5 team with a 1-3-1 spread record, it's not something you get excited about. But they have they are 1-0-1 against the spread in their last 2. I told you how they outgained Fresno. They also outgained Houston in their overtime loss last week. They looked like they were going to beat Houston, and they wound up losing that game in overtime. App State also, this could come into play. App State, if they're a dog, because they were a dog when the week began, they covered straight as a home dog since 2017. Okay, but now they're not a dog anymore. So again, another reason to side with Oregon State here. App State has lost their last 2 by an 85-36 margin. And here's one, because South Alabama last week, we gave them one more shot. That's it. No more shots. But Troy, we've been on Troy all season. We know they're down. Again, the quarterback still is not available, but the backups are getting more experience, and they beat Buffalo. They had a nice comeback win last week. More on Buffalo in a bit. South Alabama, 0-10 straight up. 1-9 against the spread as a dog when they take on an opponent off of an upset win. We're taking Troy minus the 2. Now we go to the MAC. And speaking of Buffalo, we'll get to them in a second. First, we're going to talk about Western Michigan. And that line continues to go up. It was 10. Now it's 13.5. And I think you should take them because if you look, actually it was 11. Now it's 13.5. First time they've been a favorite this year. 7-2 against the spread as a favorite under Lane Taylor, the head coach. This is year 3. This is, again, a team that beat Toledo, that lost to undefeated North Texas in overtime, and a UMass team that's lost their last 2 by an 89-13 margin. It is homecoming, whatever that's going to help a terrible program like UMass. Probably not much, but Western Michigan, clearly better, talented here. And I don't think they have anything to feel down, to come down about, because they're a 2-3 team who is 3-1 against the spread. Here's the Buffalo game I was going to talk about here. And I like Buffalo here because as much as I've been a big Creighton fan for all those years, those teams are kind of a distant memory. Things have not gone well for Creighton the last few years at Eastern. But more importantly, this Buffalo team, who was supposed to be, this hotshot new MAC team this year, is kind of disappointed. Just 2-3 straight up, 1-2-1 against the spread. It's homecoming. That's important. And this is now, even though they're 2-3, check out these last 2 losses. They lose to UConn, giving up a game-winning field goal with 11 seconds left. And then they lose to Troy when they're up 17-0 in the fourth quarter. One of the factors, though, was that Taquan Robinson, the quarterback, got injured, left the game when they're up 17-0 in the third quarter. And when was that game? That was, anyway. Actually, let me see when that was, because I wanted to check. I think that was last week when they played Troy. Pretty sure it was last week. Sometimes my weeks can be different, though. No, that was the week before. Okay. So that was the Troy game was 2 weeks ago. So they lost that one. He goes down in the third quarter, and that's a bad way to lose. Okay. Then they take on UConn and lose that game with 11 seconds to go, even without Roberson. Okay. So now Roberson's coming back. All right. And they're going to be a better team for it. He's not some great quarterback, but he is their starter. So I think after losing tough, really, I mean, you lose those games like they did the last couple of games against decent teams. UConn and Troy are decent teams. Now they're playing a pretty bad team from the MAC, not a bowl team at all. And it's 10. So I think in this situation, it's sort of like what I said last week with Houston and Tennessee, is that when you get these good teams, these decent teams, and they've had these bad weeks, and then they got to play a bad team. It's like a perfect opponent to just get all of their frustration out of them. And that's what I see this week with Buffalo against Eastern Michigan. All right. And this one, and this line keeps going up. It was 3, and now it's almost 6. Miami has won and covered 4 straight against Northern Illinois since 2016. But Northern Illinois has covered 7 straight off back-to-back straight-up ATS losses. Yeah, this is not a really good Northern Illinois team. Miami's a better team, but this line is starting to get a little bit too high for me. And then one more to go, and that is the Conference USA. No. Did we do the Sun Belt? I think we did. Yeah, we did. So it's now the lowly Conference USA. And look, we've been bashing Sam Houston all season, and for good reason. They're 0-4 straight up and against the spread on the season, and now they're a 2-point favorite for the first time all year. Why? I don't know. I just don't know this infatuation with Sam Houston because they're not the same team or program from last year. So New Mexico State, meanwhile, they're also not the same team or program from a couple of years ago, and Pavia was there, and Kill was their coach. But they've covered 8 straight weeknight or weekday home games. So I'm taking the Aggies here because I like betting against Sam Houston State and cashing. So let's keep it up. Here's a game I actually like. Delaware is a 3-point favorite against Western Kentucky. And Ryan Carty, the head coach at Delaware, this is a winning FCS program that actually came to best conference you could come to, which is the worst conference in the FBS, and came in with the most starters returning out of all the teams in that conference. So is it a surprise that one of the better programs in the FCS is off to a nice start? They have upset both UConn and FIU in their last 2 games. They almost, by just a couple of yards, outgained Colorado, UConn, and FIU. So while they're being outgained by these teams, it's been like one play here, one play there, one play there, that they'd be outgaining all of them. And again, they are a good home team as well. Under Ryan Carty, 20-3 at home. So here they are. And Western Kentucky is, look, the reason they're 4-1, 3-1 is against the numbers is because they're playing in a terrible conference. That's it. They're a good team in a bad conference, and that's all they are. But I think Delaware at home is definitely the play for me. Oh, one more. Last one of the week. This one is a game I think you need to stay away from because you have to, if you're a UConn fan, I remember we went over those Buffalo games. Well, if you're a UConn fan, you have had some really excruciating games to deal with in the fourth quarter and in overtime. In the last 3 games, UConn has been in 2 overtime games and a third game that was really close. Let me get them in here. So UConn, where is my UConn information? Here it is. All right. So after they won the first game against an FBS team, they led Syracuse 17-6 with about 6 minutes to go and blew it. They actually fell behind 20-17, but then they marched down the field and completed a 4th down pass, by the way. Hit the field goal, went to overtime, lost in overtime. Okay. The next week, they go to Delaware, and they lose to Delaware in overtime. So they lose back-to-back overtime. Then they beat Ball State by 6. Then they go to Buffalo and kick a game-winning field goal pretty much at the end of the game. Wow. That is, so the last 4 games have been decided by either overtime or 1 score, and have been pretty much 3 of them have been decided on the last play. So that's why when you're giving 7, because it was 9. So I think most people are going, oh, this team is they're every game's coming down to the last single digit, whatever. Why would I give 9? And that's probably why they're doing it. And UConn's 0-2-2 against the spread as well. So, UConn's a better team, but FIU is clearly capable. When you take a look at the teams UConn has been, even Ball State was one of them. They only beat by 6. So if that can happen, FIU can do that as well. Now, as we wrap up, let's finalize what we're going to do here and remind everybody that the schedule here on the channel, it's 5:40 right now. So we're going to be doing, what's my schedule? So we're going to be doing 2 more shows today. I'm going to be interviewing Phil Kornblut, that Clemson interview. That's at 9 Eastern. Pretty much right after that, our Penn State preview show. The guys will talk about the UCLA game this week. Then tomorrow, we'll have the Playbook ATS podcast show with Jim, Mark, Andy, and myself. That'll be at 1 o'clock Eastern. And then after that, I'll have my 4 o'clock interview with Tony Lombardi on the Ravens. And then the horse racing show is around 8 o'clock Eastern tomorrow night. Then we'll talk more football, 2:30 on Friday. Jim, Mark, and myself will get you ready for the weekend and our final observations. So we told you who we were going to go with the NFL. Well, we basically gave you I guess we should try to give you a final list. I'll say that we'll go with Kansas City. We're going to go with Buffalo and Arizona. Those will be our top 3 plays. And the other games that we like will be the Rams, Cleveland, Tampa Bay, and Dallas. Do we have any upsets in there? No. Well, it's the NFL. Let me see. Do we have any upsets? Well, Cleveland's an upset pick if we take them, because they're almost 2-1 now, I think. So Cleveland would qualify. Yeah, Cleveland would qualify. I'd probably say if I'm going to take an upset pick this week in the NFL, I'm taking the Cleveland Browns money line. Okay. And then in college, let me do this. Where am I here? Money line. Okay. And then in college, Vandy is probably going to be our top pick. I mean, why would I deviate from Vanderbilt at this point, right? So probably my wise guy pick for college. So we like Vandy. We like Michigan. We like Clemson. We like Virginia. We like Florida State, BYU, Cincinnati. We like Kansas. We like Texas Tech, Navy, Delaware, and Buffalo and Western Michigan. And then we like Nevada as a double-digit upset. UAB as a single-digit upset. Yeah, I think that's the way we're going to go. Okay. So there you go. And if I had to really, because that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 games. So if I had to narrow it down to the best games, it would be Vandy. Let me see, Vandy. I'm going to say Michigan. I'm going to say Clemson. Cincinnati. Yeah. Navy. Florida State. I got to go with Virginia again. And Kansas. Boy, I didn't really narrow them down too much, huh? And now we're down to 8. I guess the reason is because actually it's not like last week where I said, hey, I really like, 4 or 5, or I guess I did. I had about 7 or 8. I shouldn't say that. I did. I had about 7 or 8. That was probably the amount of games I had there. But I mean, it's not a whole lot difference in my mind between Texas Tech and Kansas. So I should probably just go with the amount that I did. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 teams this week. So let's just do that. Screw. I'm not going to nitpick it down because I don't see much difference between Kansas, Texas Tech, and that, of course, I think that whenever you like games, but they're from the MAC or the Conference USA, like I like Delaware, Buffalo, and Western Michigan. I think that my experience is that even if you like them a lot, I really think that's my top pick of the week. It's just crazy in my mind to put a lot of money or to put the most money on a team from those conferences because they're so much more unpredictable because they're not as good as the other teams. I don't know how many times I've done that early stages of my handicapping history. And then like I'd lose one of those games and then like a game would come up. I don't know, like say Penn State and Wisconsin. And I liked Penn State and then Penn State winds up winning and covering. And I'd be like, why wouldn't I take Penn State? But I took Tulsa or I took, Akron. I mean, that's just me. Maybe it works out for you, but it never did for me. So that's it. So I hope you enjoyed the information as always. Let's hope that we can have a really good October. September was very good. And I know we're always going to have a couple of bad weeks. So they're coming, but let's just stave them off as long as we can and hope that we've built up a nice little run here of winners. And we're going to hope to do that as long as we can here on this show here every week, every Wednesday. We'll return tomorrow at 1:00 with Mark, with Jim, with Andy on the Playbook ATS podcast. And again, make sure to subscribe. If you haven't subscribed before, it is the best way to support the channel, as well as hitting the thanks icon. If you've never done that before, that's something I should have said at the beginning of the show. I got to get used to doing more often. You hit that thanks icon, and that's when you basically is the best way that if you want to support the channel financially, you can do it with $1. But it just shows that you like what we do, you appreciate it. If we make you money, then this is your support to give back to us. Hit that thanks icon and send a little message, a little note of why you're doing it. And anything is considered, 100% gratitude. And it basically, we appreciate you guys appreciating what we do. So we'll see you again tomorrow with more coverage with the boys. But don't forget to check out later tonight when we talk a little bit Clemson football, as well as our Penn State duo of Marty Leap. Dylan and Marty actually will be on about 9:30 Eastern. I'm sure they're going to continue their rant about Saturday night and Oregon as they look ahead to UCLA coming up on Saturday night. So we'll see everybody again next Wednesday right here on Proline TV.